doesn't check. Oh, what? Oh my god! Inhuman reaction!
Oh, another headshot from Soxy. This is absolutely sensational from him. One bullet to the last.
Here's the trend. He's going to hit the ground. There's Cold. Oh, what? Stopping double from Cold!
They really struggle.
What? I have no idea. Smith's looking confused and dazed, and it's going to be a follow-up headshot.
Filip Neo Kubski was born in Poznan, Poland in June of 1987. He picked up the game of Counter-Strike at age 12, the same year that the game came out. Neo quickly took to the game, and by age 14 was already playing for semi-serious teams, competing in the fledgling Polish Counter-Strike scene. Neo's skill was immediately noticed by those around the game, being voted the Polish Player of the Year in 2002 by Counterstrike.pl whilst he plays for Spetsnaz. He was still only 15. His achievements did not go unnoticed, being signed by Team Pentagram on the 8th of April 2004. At only 17 years of age, he could not have known that this was the first step towards becoming one of the all-time greats. The five-man lineup that formed Pentagram's first ever Counter-Strike roster was Pietrek, Zibi, Luck, Taz, and Neo. Those last two names form a duo as iconic as any individual could ever hope to be. This is the first team the two played together, and would be far from the last. The duo of Neo and Taz have played together in competitive Counter-Strike over 5,100 days, playing almost 200 LANs together and winning 7 majors together between Counter-Strike 1.6 and Global Offensive. It is impossible to tell the story of Neo without talking about Taz, his oldest teammate who was there from the very beginning and is still with him today. Pentagram spent 2004 developing and trying out different players in their ever-changing lineup, winning 2 LANs against weaker competition, but going out in a brutal group stage at World Cyber Games, the only S-tier tournament they were able to attend that year. 2005 showed some improvements, with the team winning 2 higher caliber events and making it out of group stages at 2 S-tier LANs. At the end of 2005, Zibi and Napalm retired from the game, making way for the incoming Lord and Motti W, the former of which is going to be very important in the coming years. After coming 17th to 24th at ESWC 2006, Motti W was replaced by Cuban. For those who don't know the game of Counter-Strike as well as others, this completed the 5-man roster that became known as the Golden Five, the longest lasting and most successful 5-man roster to ever come out of arguably any country in 1.6. Out of the total $760,000 won by Polish players in 1.6, over 85% was earned by this specific group of players, who stuck together until 2010. It has become a common misconception that Taz and Neo's team in CSGO are the Golden Five, but that name belongs most definitely to their 1.6 roster, the most iconic group of players of their era. With the Golden Five assembled, Pentagram won WSVG London 2006 and World Cyber Games 2006, the latter of which being their first major victory, coming at the expense of the Swedish NIP roster featuring all-time greats Spawn and Robban. The year closed on a 3rd place finish at CPL Winter, the final major of the year, and the future looked bright for the young Polish squad. It only took until March of 2007 for them to add another big trophy to the cabinet, winning Intel Extreme Masters 1. After losing their opening game of the playoffs to the Danish H2K Gaming, they defeated the 2 best Swedish teams, SK and Fnatic, in back-to-back games, then avenged their loss to H2K by defeating them 2-0 in the grand final. This tournament was not considered a major due to only European teams being allowed to compete, but it was still one of the most impressive victories the Golden Five achieved, overcoming the odds in a lower bracket to find their way to redemption. The first major of the year was ESWC 2007, where Pentagram continued to feast on Scandinavian opponents, demolishing NIP and passing the test of Fnatic on their way to the final, where they overcame the Danish NOA roster in 3 maps. The second half of the year didn't go so well, with Neo and the boys only being able to win a pair of lower profile events, and having disappointing finishes at the elite events they attended. Still, his performances were enough for him to be voted Polish Player of the Year for the 2nd time by the recently revived Counterstrike.pl website, a title he would also likely have won in 2006 had the website existed. In December of 2007, the organisation Meet Your Makers released their Norwegian roster, then signed Pentagram, likely tired of watching them triumph where their roster could not. Now under the banner of Meet Your Makers, the Golden Five entered 2008 looking for more silverware. It took them until May to truly find their footing, having not been able to qualify for IEM2, which was held in March. At Codefight 2008, they finished 4th. Then, they won 3 S-tier events in a row, the last of which being ESWC 2008, the second major of the year. The grand final of ESWC was an incredible 3-map series against the Korean team Istro, who put together one of the most incredible underdog runs to even make it to the final. After being knocked out of WEM in groups, then in quarters at WCG in early November, the team felt they needed a change to get back to winning ways. The series of events that followed revealed how much the team wanted to win, how much they needed the change, and overall how codependent they'd become. It started with the removal of luck on November 14th, with the team putting out a statement about how hard the decision was. Then, on November 19th, the team announced they would be keeping Luke in, and instead removing Cuban, who would be replaced by Pionas. The statement put out by Neo, Taz and Lord is comical in its absurdity, and doesn't really clarify the decisions completely. They played one event with Pionas, DreamHack Winter 2008, where they finished 3rd behind SK Gaming and MTW. After taking a 2-month break from the game, they came back to practice and decided something was missing and didn't feel quite right. So, on the 2nd of February 2009, they removed Pionas and brought back Cuban. What a mess. As if the situation surrounding the team couldn't get more turbulent, the Meet Your Makers org disbanded in March of 2009 due to their main sponsor going bankrupt. This led to the team bouncing around multiple different orgs, trying to find one that would be able to finance them fully. They played under the banners of Wicked Esports, Vitriolic Gaming, and finally, Again, a clan tag they used when no organisation was backing them. It was whilst playing as Again that Neo and the rest of the Golden Five won their 4th major in CS 1.6, World Cyber Games 2009. They fought their way to the final, where a seemingly unstoppable Fnatic team awaited them. Fnatic had not lost a single map in the playoffs to that point, with only the Elder Gods from Romania being able to take them the distance in any of those maps. The grand final started with a 54-round, quintuple overtime slog on Nuke, which Again were able to eventually grind out. The second map was on Train, and Again were thankfully able to close it out 16-12. After the organisational chaos of 2009, Again was signed by Frag Executors in 2010. However, Luck decided it was time to call it quits, retiring from competitive Counter-Strike and ending the era of the Golden Five. In his place, Pasha was signed to become the 5th man. 2010 required quite an adjustment period before the team clicked, finally winning WEG E-Stars 2010 in August. Even though the team struggled, Neo was still named the 7th best player in the world, showing his quality as an individual even when the team struggled to find success. In 2011 they showed what the roster could do, winning 7 tournaments, including Neo's 5th major at WCG, where they triumphed over Forest and Get Right's SK Gaming under the banner of ESC. The start of 2012 was realistically the end of 1.6, with the final major ever to be played being IEM6 in Hanover. They beat Natus Vincere in the Grand Final 2-0, the team that had won 4 majors in a row between 2010 and 2011. This brought Neo's total to 6 majors won in CS 1.6, which combined with 2 runner-up finishes and 2 bronze medals made him easily the most successful player to play the game. Having won the award for Best Player in the World in 2011, as well as being voted the Best Player of the Decade, truly sums up why Neo is considered the GOAT of 1.6. By September of 2012, Neo's org ESC Gaming announced they would be fully transitioning to playing Counter-Strike Global Offensive. This transition was a rough one, not winning any notable events in 2012. In July of 2013, Lord retired. 2 months later, Cuban joined Virtus Pro as their coach. In order to replace these 2 legends, Snacks and Bialy were signed. But this roster didn't stay with ESC for long, leaving for Universal Soldiers. There, they only stayed for 2 months, leaving in December of 2013 and becoming Again. Early in 2014, Again was signed by Virtus Pro. They immediately began working towards qualifying for EMS1 Katowice, the second major of CSGO, and one they would be playing on home soil. They steamrolled through the local qualifier, not even dropping a single map. The same thing happened at the final qualifier, Virtus Pro being far too good for this level of competition. Once at the major, Virtus Pro had a shaky start, needing overtime to beat Hellraisers, but then the Virtus plow got started, brushing aside Titan 16-7 on Mirage. They ploughed through LDLC 16-3, 16-8 in the quarterfinals, making light work of the Frenchmen. In the semi-final, LGB were able to take map 2 in overtime, but they proved to only be a small bump in the road, the men from Poland continuing on to the grand final. Finally, it was NIP's turn to stand in the way of the plough, needing to prove themselves as the #1 team in the world again after falling from their throne at DreamHack Winter a few months prior. Unfortunately for NIP, the plough cares not for your ambitions towards kingship, and they were brushed aside in 2 maps.
MBK, your thoughts on that win?
That was just a masterclass from First Pro. Look at that, they are extremely happy, and I think they are even happier knowing that they totally outplayed NIP. That was an immense game, and look at that, the whole crowd, it's a whole standing ovation from everyone, and First Pro, they're just too happy.
Prior to this tournament, doubts were circling about the skill level Neo possessed in the game of CSGO. His stats in 2013 had been quite weak for a player once contending for the title of best in the world. However, whilst he wasn't the MVP at Katowice, the 26-year-old veteran was a key contributor to his team's success, showing glimpses of the impact that allow him to carry his 1.6 teams to the summit. At the next 7 majors, Virtus.pro made it to the top 8 or better, but were not able to secure another victory. This run at the majors perfectly exemplifies what kind of team Virtus.pro were during CSGO, consistently competing with the elite, but lacking the firepower to win many events, being mostly reliant on team play and their grit and grind style. They were able to win events such as StarLadder I-League Invitational 1, CEVO Season 8, and E-League Season 1 thanks to this chemistry, their indomitable belief in themselves, and the occasional blast from the past performance from Neo pushing them over the top. The nickname Virtus Plow was born from the fact that the team could not be stopped when they got rolling, moving their opponents aside at will. Unfortunately, the Plow was prone to breaking down when the internal components argued and clashed with each other, leading to poor streaks of performance. The closest Neo ever came to scaling the summit again was at the E-League Major in Atlanta 2017. They won their 3 group games without too many issues, but faced adversity in the playoffs, losing a map to North, and then requiring overtime and all 30 rounds to get past SK Gaming in 2 maps. The grand final was an immediate classic. VP took map 1, before narrowly losing maps 2 and 3 to an Astralis roster looking for their first major win. The loss was heartbreaking. A top 4 finish at PGL Major Krakow 2017 was the last tournament at which Virtus.pro looked like the team they used to be, and thus began their slide into obscurity, never being able to reclaim their former glory. After being dropped from Virtus.pro late in 2018, Neo appeared as a stand-in for FaZe Clan, before signing with RC and Honoris to pair up with Taz again, the two still wanting to play the game, but no longer being able to compete at the highest level. Combining 1.6 and Global Offensive, Neo won 22 S-tier events, of which 7 were majors. This, combined with his incredible number of top placings, makes him one of the greatest winners in esports, and one of the few to even be able to compete for such an extended period of time. Coming from the Polish region, he was in a perpetual struggle against circumstance, with few sponsors and an incredibly small player pool to select from as teammates. As Duncan Thorenshield puts it in an article from 2012 about choosing between Neo and Forest for the greatest of 1.6, Neo has been there in the biggest moments to push teams with less talent than any other great teams to the most major titles in history. Despite disadvantages, Neo has massively overperformed on an individual and success level, winning when it seemed as though the opponents were a sure thing to take the title. He didn't have the superstar teammates. He didn't even always have the organization paying him a salary. But he was the chosen one, and he found a way to win.